created using Powtoon.
Hello and welcome to the Priori podcast for June 2016. I'm Kessel Duxbury, the editor of the Priori.co.uk, and this month, the first of the monthly podcasts that we intend to produce, we are speaking to Harry Raithatha and Ben Walters, both who have contributed to the Priori in the past. Had some really interesting discussions, starting from talking about lasers, have a discussion about football, and we did it in Nottingham, in the East Midlands, where we have a discussion with Ben about the privatisation and the amalgamation of the shopping centres and how that's affecting the city. And then we move on to the European Union debate, and we have a really good discussion about how the arguments from both sides have been slightly fear-mongering. Maybe we would have introduced slightly more difficult arguments, basically just how the European Union is a difficult thing. It isn't straightforward, and we kind of all agreed on that, despite having quite different opinions of it. So this is, as I said, this is the first month that we intend to be running. Of course, we are supported by the Priori.co.uk, where this will be put out. We will also put a download link to SoundCloud. We'd also just like to thank Powtoon, who have helped us create the opening sequence on the YouTube channel, and the Canadian group Flutes, who have kindly let us use the seat back, windows up intro as a little jingle opening, which is lovely of them. So yeah, as I said, this podcast is a bit longer than we anticipated, but we, as I say, we had a really good, interesting chat, and I hope you like it. And I will catch up with you at the end. Hello and welcome to the first Priori podcast, joined by two guests today. It's Harry Raithatha and Ben Walters.
Hello.
Hello.
That is both of them. Harry, who are you?
On this one.
That's that one.
And this is me.
That's Ben. That's Ben. We met at University of Nottingham. We all studied politics, so of course we're incredibly arrogant. So how is everything?
It's good, yeah. Nice to be back in Nottingham, really.
Yeah, so just to clarify, Ben lives in Nottingham, as you'll tell by his broad accent.
That's me again.
Is this just going to be a chat of me describing you two?
Pretty much, isn't that what we're doing? Isn't that? I mean, I've been missold otherwise.
Yeah. So yeah, we are. Harry and I have both come up from the south. From civilization.
Charming. We're all wedged into my modest studio.
It's lovely. It's nice.
It is nice. It's got a balcony.
There's a canal nearby, I'm told.
So.
And we're in the very historic city of Nottingham.
God City.
Of Mercia.
Yeah. Mercia.
Yeah. What's that?
The city of the outlaw spirit.
See why the county council's running with that as the tagline.
The outlaw spirit, yeah.
There is actually a competition at the moment to design the new Nottingham and Nottinghamshire logo. Obviously, they want it to have a Robin Hood theme because they did have a wonky N, which went well. That went really well.
So we're going to have Nottingham face as the the tagline.
You never know.
I would love that.
Never trust the general public with naming something or competition.
The funniest thing, and I think I wrote this in one of the editorials a couple of months ago about Boaty McBoatface, I thought it was brilliant. When the Spice Girls reunited, they put it up to a general poll to see whether the Spice Girls should do their first reunion gig, and the British public said Baghdad. I think that it basically encapsulates everything.
Yeah.
What the British Republic want? Put the Spice Girls in grave danger. Why would you not want that?
Well, I think somebody tried. I think they tried to do it something similar with Justin Bieber, didn't they? They tried to send him to North Korea or something when he gave his fans a choice.
Why would you? I mean, yeah.
But it's great. I mean, when New Zealand had the redesign the flag competition, and number 3 was a kiwi bird with lasers coming out of its eyes. I mean, say what you will about New Zealand, but they know what they're about.
Did they invent the laser?
I don't think they did, but I think as a flag, you can't fault them on the...
Yeah, they invented the kiwi, I think, so some relevance.
Yeah.
Did they invent the kiwi?
I don't know, probably not.
The fruit was invented, and New Zealander just went, this is our fruit now.
So Peter Jackson sort of brought it over while he found the hobbits and all that.
I was misinformed that everything was shot in Wales.
Yeah, I don't think it was.
I was like,
maybe they nicked Welsh people.
That doesn't look like Newport to me. I was like, I've been to Newport quite a few times. It looks severely worse than that. But no, what else has of the British public been? Well, an election. Like what else have we let ourselves down?
Is this how the EU referendum's going to go? We're going to vote for something that's not on the list.
Yesy McNoface.
Yes. Going to vote to join Liberia or something like that instead.
Why not? I mean, I think we could be part of Panama.
Well, I mean, more so than we are now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we have some interest. It's all good. It's all good. No, there must be better things we could put our minds on. I mean, the one I always like is when they on Match of the Day they give you goal of the week or goal of the month sort of thing. And if it's they always have sort of the token English. Of course, this year it hasn't been quite as bad. We've had some good English goals.
Vardy and Kane.
Yeah. But they always have the token Englishman. Have you ever noticed it? And it's one man sort of with a generic scrappy goal man, and it's like, well, okay, well, maybe that's goal of the month. It's like, well, okay, it could be. I mean, I don't think it is. I mean, this Brazilian guy who's put it in from 50 yards.
Yeah.
Like, and Harry looking very blankly at Bennett.
Yeah, I hear words and
50 yards is a long way out on a football pitch.
I mean, I know what 50 yards is. I don't think that was the issue. It's all balance.
Because I mean football in Nottingham's quite a big thing, isn't it? Your beloved team, Forest.
Yes, we're currently going through a transitional phase of ownership. Greek shipping magnate looking to buy up to 80%, I think, in the club. So that's exciting. The transfer embargo's over, so we're on a level playing field again. The great anti-Forest conspiracy is sort of dying down a little.
Have you checked the Greek magnate's finances?
Yeah,
He's done the compliance checks. He's not signing over the Pantheon or something like that.
In return, you get the part of them.
Yeah, Nottingham Forest, big in Greece. Very nice.
It was like Leicester are big in Thailand now, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, I was going to do quite not a PC impression of, but their chairman is really young, isn't he? Or pretty sure.
Yeah.
Of course, Leicester making waves. They're going to be a European Championship.
They did all right, didn't they? I don't think.
Jinxing's a one-season thing?
I think the standard of the Premier League was quite poor, which, helped their rise to glory. Not knocking what they did. You can only play the teams in front of you, can't you? But when you look at, Aston Villa usually scrape it, but they went down abysmally.
It's funny. For anybody who doesn't support Aston Villa, it was funny.
Man U still going through their post-Fergie sort of
trauma.
Yes. Chelsea obviously nowhere to be seen after winning.
I'm not really sure what happened. And also, why is it now such a good thing after Jose Mourinho gets sacked for an abysmal season? Is then it a good thing that Mourinho then goes? I mean, I know he's been successful, but I don't know. It'd be like signing. I was going to say Jermaine Defoe, but that's no longer a good example. He was or Emil Heskey. Be like now.
Yes, the wardrobe.
Yes. He was voted. Actually, this going back to where you shouldn't trust Brits. When you know how they do a thing, who should go on the cover of FIFA every year?
Yeah.
It was Jordan Henderson, a few other players, Wayne Rooney, and all the normal players. And then Emil Heskey came surprisingly close in third. And I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Short, I mean, only behind Nancy Harriet.
I mean, he goes on any cover. I mean,
We have a bit of a mutual love for Nancy Harriet.
Yeah. I mean, that man had so many career paths that we feel that we could just put him in video games.
Have you seen him in the? I don't want to call it photobombing, but he's next to a penguin, smiling and pointing at this penguin. If you haven't seen it, it's brilliant, because there's something about Ainsley Harriet's face which it brings joy. Like you could put it anywhere, like put it in Hiroshima the day after the bomb drop, and he would lighten moods.
Topical.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
Very topical, actually. Not. This isn't 1945. This isn't just been uncovered.
If you're hearing this now.
Yes, we're no longer in Nottingham. Actually, at that point, Nottingham Forest were probably quite good. The transfer embargoes didn't exist.
Yeah.
You just moved.
Yeah.
It was like a postal election. Just moved constituencies, and all of a sudden you're playing for Blackpool.
Yeah.
No, he's Barack Obama. Did he apologise? I know he spoke.
Yeah, and he's hugged someone, hasn't he, who was there when it all kicked off.
Like a cool
A
story.
sort of reconciliation
Hug.
hug. Yeah.
Brilliant. 140,000 dead in Nagasaki. Well, here's his hug.
Is the empathy hug.
Yeah.
Come here, you.
Nevertheless.
I can't really show a hug on a radio show. Just picture me hugging a microphone.
Really right, you didn't. I mean, whilst this equipment isn't massively expensive, I'd still rather reuse it once. I don't know. I thought the whole thing with Barack Obama going over was a nice token gesture. But it's a bit like when didn't he get a pencil? No, a box set for Gordon Brown.
Yes, in 2009
when he visited.
Yeah.
And no, Gordon Brown had gone to he'd got this crafted pencil that had come from Hawaii where he was born, and apparently the tree had been. Is it felled? Felled's the right term, isn't it, for a tree?
The Obamas gave the Queen, I think, did they give her an iPad or something, because she's quite into technology generally, isn't she? She does like to keep with it.
I have seen that she
probably
tweets.
doesn't say things like with it, but
No.
but yeah, she does like to keep up to date with technology. So they gave her, I'm sure it was an iPad, which don't come cheap. And in return,
But you're the president.
in return, well, that's not the point though. In return, the Queen and Prince Philip gave them a signed photograph of them two.
Like, I'm meeting you. Like, why is that?
Vanity of that. I suppose they're getting a bit sick of when Gordon Brown was Prime Minister, getting a bottle of Bells every year.
That's if Charles Kennedy ever became Prime Minister. Hick. That was the private eye front cover, wasn't it, when they got married? It was wedding bells, and then around the outside just bottles of Bell's whiskey. Which was quite fitting. That was a sad demise. The Liberal Democrats.
Tim Farron. That is his name, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing though. He's so.
Don't really know much about him. I think he's quite a dedicated Christian, isn't he? I think.
That's what I know of him, and he was president of the Politics Society at Newcastle University.
Not like the Nottingham Trent Politics Society.
Which is where I was president of it.
Where's he from?
Preston.
Is he?
He's one of ours.
That's good. There's
There's
not enough.
Well,
You're not from Preston.
Well,
there's not enough northern leaders.
I imagine.
Apart from the Scots.
I was going to say.
I mean, Northern England. You know.
I was going to say. I
not
mean,
very well
I
represented.
imagine the Prime Minister of Iceland would have something to say about that. I mean, who is that now? Because they've just gone under a change, haven't they?
Yeah.
After what was it? 10% of the population marched on like a Tuesday. That's brilliant.
So 50 people turned up.
I mean, it is easy when you haven't got anyone. It's a very small population, and everybody lives within all around the coast on a not very big island anyway.
Yeah.
It'd be like the people of Jersey having an uprising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Reykjavik is obviously the biggest city, isn't it? And I think that's about 250,000, I think, isn't it? Something like that.
Which is tiny.
Yeah.
For a capital city,
Yeah.
That's ridiculously small. I do remember when I was in when I was in Nairobi. Just speaking of capital cities, I was in Nairobi and decided that what I was going to do was turn Tinder on and play Tinder in Nairobi, and it just seemed to be for prostitutes. And I thought this obviously doesn't have the same thing. And I was chatting to one of the bar staff in the hotel bar, and they said, "Oh no, we don't use Tinder. We've got another app." And she showed me this app, and it wasn't called Kinder, but it was something like it was
Like Kenyan Tinder.
The tagline was the Kenyan Tinder, and I was like, "That's not." I mean, it could have been called Kinder, could it? I mean, that would have been under all sorts of litigation.
Well, not least a website that's aimed at German children.
Would you like my chocolate, sort of thing? That's not no.
There's been a row about Kinder actually that I read this morning about the party that's got in Alternative for Deutschland, the UKIP party in Germany.
Yeah.
Have complained about black children being on the Kinder boxes or something like that.
Why?
I assume because they're horrific racists.
But okay, good point well made. I imagine it's a slightly, but then again, the Kinder kid for ages was a typical Aryan, blonde hair, blue eyes. I don't know, there's blue hair, blonde eyes, German child looking very happy.
I mean, I just found it
with an apple. Why do I remember it with an apple?
Did he have an apple?
Sounds a bit
I
healthy.
doubt it. Yeah,
I think you might have made that one.
But I mean,
I have confused. No, that was on the corner. Where my nan used to live. This is very off topic. Where my nan used to live, there was a kid on this. You know how you can get sort of generic marketing stuff for corner shops.
Yes,
and they sort and it looks very generic, and it obviously looks very made up and stuff like that. And this kid had this very, very blonde hair and was holding an apple, looking really excited, with I assume was the sister character. And I just thought, no one's ever that happy with an apple. I was like, how miserable I was at like 8. So no one's ever that happy with an apple. But no, I think the Kinder child was similar. So.
But I mean, I found it quite funny that the actual translation off that box said "chocolate children," which, given the complaint, was quite ironic. But,
that's a spangly section of irony, that isn't it?
but no.
Right, the have you ever had it's called something like toffee or
Toffee.
Toffee, that's the one.
Ridiculous name for a bit of food.
It's described as confectionery, as like a sort of treat, and I think most people say it's fair enough. If you've ever had one, it's not a treat, it's a chore, because it lasts ages. It's like, when's this going to end? It's like gnawing away this horrible bit of toffee. I've never understood toffee though.
Yeah, I mean,
I've never understood toffee.
This is the guy with 2 degrees, and toffee is the...
This sod electoral practice.
Yeah.
Let's look at toffee. Here's a fun fact. Wi-Fi was down or something like that, so I was flicking through the Guinness Book of Records. Because I think everyone should have the Guinness Book of Records. I think it's a really...
No, Wikipedia's killed that for me, mate.
Well, the Wi-Fi was down, so I was having a look, and the world's biggest bit of... It might have changed since the 2013 volume I was reading, but the world's biggest bit of toffee was in the shape of Texas. You just sat there going, that's a ridiculous shape for...
But a scale model, obviously.
Yeah, not actually.
It wasn't. They didn't just go, right guys, nobody put your feet down, because we're going to put toffee down today.
It explains why Ted Cruz is so miserable.
House.
Constantly stuck to this giant piece of...
There was Goalkeepers used to do that, didn't they? you
Toffee?
well, they used to try and use things to make their hands stickier, didn't they? And
right.
And one of the things that they would use was chewing gum. I remember reading one of the old Manchester United keepers apparently tried Toffee, and it worked brilliantly for about 5 minutes, and then they just sort of fell off, and then you've just got horrible, disgusting, fly-ridden hands.
Yeah, you got the issue as well when they try and bowl the ball out quickly to someone, and it just ends up sort of sticking to his hand and falling straight to the striker in front of him.
You might be able to answer me.
There are some flaws in that.
In having two sticky hands. Well, the thing is, though, it doesn't matter how sticky your hand is. You've got to get to the ball, which is the difficult thing for most other people. So, but you might be able to, as a football fan. Why do goalkeepers spit on their gloves? Because I assume gloves are made.
Do you know?
By experts in.
I have no idea. I can't
have a guess.
Well, I can't even think of any logic in it really, because it's going to just. Presumably, it doesn't have a great deal of effect, but if anything, it would surely make them less grippy. No? Do you know? I honestly don't know. One to look up.
If anybody does know, feel free to answer priori.co.uk. Leave a comment under the editorial, and I'll be very happy. I'm sure it's one of these things that Mythbusters.
Maybe they're just proud, and they
don't want their saliva to hit the floor.
Well, yeah, maybe, or maybe they're just sort of cleaning the gloves, keep them spick and span.
I imagine they've got sponsorship deals.
Yeah. don't run out of new
Not really.
gloves. No. Yeah.
It's like, I wonder if academy players still have to clean the pros' boots, or do the pros just get a new pair every time?
I think that's a bit old school these days, isn't it? It'd be great if they did though.
Marcus Rashford's still cleaning boots. He's going, well, he's still only 18.
I think it was at Man U where, and I think it was Marcus Rashford. Van Gaal made him dine at the training complex with the youngsters, the under-21s and whatnot, rather than the first team. Obviously, even though he was scoring willy-nilly for the first team.
And for England now.
The general policy was, it doesn't matter what your stature is.
You dine with your age group.
Yeah, you dine with your age group.
But that must mean Luke Shaw, Memphis Depay.
I think, I don't think he was the only one. I think there was a couple of them that... didn't get to sit at the big table.
I did read that.
I don't think they lose too much sleep over that.
I did read that how they'd a few of the players had basically whistle-blown what the schedule was, and it was one of these things. I think it's common practice that whenever your matches, you have the day after off.
Yeah,
that tends to be fairly common
generally.
So most games are on Saturday, but if you have a Sunday game, you have the Monday off. And Van Gaal went, no, everybody in on the Monday, in for training. And they wonder why they had so many injuries.
Yeah, I mean, in not so much in the Premiership, I don't think, or the Championship, but you're more old. There's a few old school managers in League 1 and 2 who, if you lose on the Saturday afternoon, they'll have all the players in
on the
Sunday morning first thing as a sort of, a sort of punishment, I guess, and B, so because obviously they feel that they need to do the extra work to discover what was wrong and right it.
I remember as a sort of late adolescence still playing football. If we lost, we had an extra training session, so we'd train 3 times a week. I think it was something like Monday, Wednesday, Friday to play on the Sunday. And our Monday one would just be fitness, and we would go through the game and stuff like that. And it was an evening thing. But I remember if we lost, we'd have to go in on the Tuesday. And
I suppose at that age you don't mind it so much, do you? You just want to play all the football you can, really, don't you? Well,
I think the difficulty was when my dad then moved to Birmingham, and I'm like, I've got to get back. We lost. Although the only saving grace, we were all right. We finished 3rd in my leaving season, and then got the chance to play for Trent. And
yes, your
played one match,
and that went well, didn't it?
Got sent off after 6 minutes. He was too quick. I must have been like, where were the drug tests? The guy was on speed. It was ridiculous. But anyway, Harry, let's move on from football, because I know Harry's currently looking at us like.
I'm fine.
Dust is settling on his eyebrows. Like,
And it's a sore point in Nottingham anyway, at the moment. Football. Yeah.
Well,
Wasn't the best seasons.
What about for County? County did alright, didn't they?
Oh no, they were pretty abysmal as well.
Oh, okay, alright. I'll take that back. Roy Carroll's still playing goal for them.
I believe he does, yes.
'Cause he
Roy
played-
Carroll and Scott Loach, I think.
Who's Scott Loach?
He was at Watford for quite a while. I think he was in and around the England setup at one point. I may be wrong, but he was up and coming at one point. I think he sort of...
I mean, Roy Carroll...
He's up now and not really coming so much anymore. But
I mean, Roy Carroll... I mean, we'll have to ask his wife. Roy Carroll will always go down as that one moment against Tottenham when the ball clearly went up, and he sort of hoiked it back over. And it's like, what? Like, a bit like when Frank Lampard scored against Germany, I think it was, in the World Cup. Clearly went over.
Yeah.
Every camera angle went, that is clearly over. Like, Ray Charles could tell you that's over. And
nice current reference there.
How long has Ray Charles been dead? I mean, it's like, does Steve Wonder like football? Get him on the line.
I mean, I don't know whether he's, given the circumstances...
Sometimes they put bells in balls, don't they?
yeah.
Well, they don't do that in the main match.
Yeah. You got in the World Cup.
And the hard of hearing commentary. Just a bit of ringing coming up.
Surely the hard of hearing country, why would they need the bell and the ball? It's the hard of sight. Hard of hearing, what the difference is that going to make?
Maybe they just amp it up a bit.
What do you think they've got? Little marshals on there?
I don't know. I haven't played one of those games before.
Oh, you're not a big football fan, are you?
No,
What sports do you like? Fox hunting?
Yeah. Fox hunting.
Vandalism?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Arson.
I mean,
in that order.
I mean, all the standard sort of public order offences. I prefer the urban Olympics. That's what it's about.
The urban Olympics. Isn't that the one where you try and kill a fox with a brick?
Yeah, it's you try and stop them copulating, and then deliver the coup de grace as it comes.
Would Madame like to deliver the final blow? It's a Sean Lott line, isn't it? I got told off from my normal day job. Actually, no, this was when I was volunteering for the Citizens Advice Bureau.
Oh dear.
And I was having lunch at my desk. Everybody worked through their lunch because I was just volunteering. I didn't bother. I watched YouTube clips. And I watched the Sean Lock's funniest moments. And I was howling with laughter in this sort of call centre where people are going, I've lost everything. I can't, and I'm like, I'm properly laughing.
Well, I mean, it is a citizens' advice bureau, and what people need to understand is that people can sometimes be a bit dodgy, or.
I mean, I tended to think that even. I mean, particularly when you're dealing with people with debt relief orders, those were the people who you could have been more sensible. But you still have a certain... Because often, I think the thing is, something has to go wrong at some point.
Yeah.
And it's not the fact that I just spent. I kept going on holiday and stuff like that. It tended to be something like... A real common thing was people would go off on sort of semi-long-term sick for sort of like a month or so. Or like one woman developed pneumonia. And she said, "Well, I got a credit card in order to keep the bills up because I was on reduced sick pay or something like that because of the time I'd been with the company." You sat there going, "Well, so that credit card would probably for the 4 weeks or something probably cost her $1,000 or two, and then to pay that off, she's thinking, well, the best way of me doing that is take out a loan to pay the credit card off."
Yeah.
And then it spiraled. And
Spirals.
it was never. I don't think I ever came. I mean, of course, there's going to be exceptions to this rule, but I don't think I ever came across anybody who had just gone, I went on holiday and kept getting pina coladas. It just didn't work like that.
Had a great time, blew the lot.
Yeah.
You don't get the Las Vegas, put it all on red.
Oh, shit, I'll have to come back on a debt relief order now. But the weird thing is, I don't know if you know this, but to have a debt relief order, it costs you 90 quid.
Yeah, it's a bizarre one. It's
Well, you'll know this doing your LPC. So
well, you say that, but
you should know more.
I don't know all the law, but I mean,
Why not?
Well, I mean, it's like the criminal courts charge, and you think these are people who can't pay, for anything, and you're putting another charge on them. It's ineffective.
Why have you fallen so behind on your debt? so we're going to give you more debt. It's like going, so what's that? You're an alcoholic? Well, drink more gin. It's like
if a company goes into liquidation, you've still got to pay the liquidators' fees first. So you kind of, you never win completely. I mean, if you're going into liquidation, you definitely not winning. Philip Green might know a bit more about this than I do at the moment.
Well, ask him about asset stripping.
Well, I mean, alleged asset stripping, it should be said.
I don't know, I just think the man's a bit of... I don't think there's a better superlative than just a shit. Like, he's just a shit of a human being. Like, the fact that whatever he's doing in his business life, I think you can okay, I'm trying to make as much money as possible, which he's very successful at.
Yeah.
But then, what's he advising the government on?
Isn't he a business czar? Which is kind of sadly ironic, given the...
Kind of, yeah. And all these businesses are going out of business under his authority, and then he's going, actually, what we need is more foreign direct investment and stuff like that. Well, stop asset stripping. Sort of rule one, but...
I mean, his wife allegedly claimed about £500 million pounds in dividends, and we got none of the stamp duty on it because she's a resident in Monaco, I believe.
Either Monaco, yeah.
Yeah. So we've got nothing from that, and we've gained nothing from the sale or any of it.
No.
And the pension fund's got a deficit of a few hundred million.
It's a decent chunk. Although, to be honest, I mean, British Home Store is definitely a business. If you were going to have the high street and go, okay, what's going out of business first? British Home Store is right next to Card Company or something like that. I mean, it's really. I think the last time I went to British Home Store was when was with my grandmother, and considering she had Alzheimer's for 6 years before she died. I mean, it was a long time. Ago, and even then I remember it being just a symphony of beige.
Well, I have some lovely BHS socks on show today.
Do you really?
With the proceeds of, I don't know.
They pretty much sum up BHS.
Yeah,
they
are. A grey functional
blue,
sock.
Grey sort of
generic
pattern.
But functional being the key word there.
Don't get me wrong, I think their waterproof mattress covers were brilliant. Like, I mean,
and the 90s that were slightly flammable, keeping you warm but in the wrong way.
It's when people have electric blankets over their 90s. Faulty electric blankets. Kazakhstan made electric blankets.
Yeah.
With the earth physically drilled into the bottom of a shoe or something like that. I don't know.
British Home Stores. Although I once read in a Novotel, it was the Novotel near East Midlands Airport, and I stopped overnight because I had a job interview in the area the next morning, so did the whole thing. And I was reading the Nottingham tourism book, and they were talking about the shopping scene in Nottingham because, despite the condition of the two shopping centres, it's still pretty good, really, which is amazing considering that all the other cities have had big shopping centres built and whatnot. But they were selling the Broadmar, and they didn't have a lot to say about it, which is understandable because there's not a lot of good to say about it. But they basically sold it to tourists. It just said, and then there's the Broadmar right in the middle of the town where you'll find such great stores as and BHS was on there and Argos was the other one. I can't remember what the third one was, but
there's not a lot there. Isn't there a Wimpy in there?
Yeah, there's still a Wimpy.
So Wimpy is a good reason to keep the Broadmar shop. Keep this huge piece of land.
Actually, I think Wimpy's the most successful unit in there.
Must be. Everyone loves a Wimpy.
Yeah.
It's
solid bean burgers.
Bean?
Well, you've got to bear in mind the vegetarianism for like 11 years. Me.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, you have this faux vegetarianism.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like on my off days I become a carnivore kind of.
So haven't you? We've just come back from lunch.
Yeah.
Where you have had ground beef nachos
and a club sandwich. I've literally offended all of the farm.
The only thing you could have done is sort of stuck the plate down with prick stick, and you would have even the horses are going. Oh god.
But yeah.
For those who aren't familiar with Nottingham, Ben could easily tell you about why there should be some protectionism.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm not into free market economics, in its entirety. In Nottingham, into, as they're called now, previously capital shopping centres, I think. They've got places all over the country, but they bought the Broadmar shopping centre from Westgate on the eve of its proposed redevelopment. Completely under the radar, I think. It was quite a big shock when it came out in the news the next day. Certainly, I don't think the council knew a great deal about it. But the office, for fair trading and everything, and the competition commissions and whatnot, they say that's fine. And we've got a situation in Nottingham now where they've just done up the Victoria Centre. Lipstick on a pig springs to mind, but
completely impartial.
And they're supposed to now be starting. In fact, I think they're supposed to have already started by their own proposed schedule, redeveloping the Broadmarsh. But basically, it's just been left to fester, and it seems
because it's just a walkway.
Yeah,
the city
I mean, call me cynical, but it just seems like they almost want that one. They want to kill it off to help the Victoria Centre do better,
which is literally 400 yards, not maybe a bit, maybe half a mile.
Yeah.
It's not. It's walking distance.
Oh yeah, as most things are in Nottingham city centre.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously it's a big.
Not for me at the minute.
It is basically Nottingham Berlin Wall. Effectively cuts off the more run-down south side of the city from the rest of it, and you sort of have to pass through it
to get to and from the train station and the car park.
Yeah, Nottingham City Council, I think, is spearheading a recladding and revamping of the bus station and the car park, which will do some good. But it's no good if the Broadmarsh is just going to look like it does.
I think for most people, for those who haven't been to Nottingham, I would strongly recommend it. There's an awful lot to do, even with the Broadmarsh being in its
shopping centres aside. Yeah,
it's
great city.
It's got really good high streets as well. I mean, I think the shopping scene without the shopping centres is actually really good.
Yeah.
But the problem is you have to walk through the Broadmarsh to get into the city, and it's the only logical way that anybody would walk through. Otherwise, you've got to go to the top of Hockley, and that's not pedestrian friendly. I mean, I used to live in Hockley, and it's not pedestrian friendly. So you always go through this shopping centre, and it just seems so 1970s right
Yeah,
down.
it is like walking through the 60s or 70s, which is amazing because I think it was only built in the 80s.
It looked old.
It was dated from the word go, I think. But no, that's a problem. I'm surprised actually they don't flatten it and build student accommodation on it, because that's pretty much what they're doing everywhere else at the moment in Nottingham. And that's not a complaint.
I was just
going to say, Nottingham City Centre, I think now is more vibrant for it. There's plenty of natives here who say, City Council only looking after the students. Obviously, a lot of it's actually private development, so it's nothing to do with the City Council.
And also, the city centre itself, the only people who really live there are students, because of the campus of the universities, and then you've got the Lenton Triangle where it's a bit more diverse. But Nottingham as this city is far bigger than just the city centre. What most students see, it goes out a long way.
I mean, Nottingham City Centre itself is quite small relative to the size of the city, which is mainly down to things like there's a lot of pedestrianisation, which I approve of, and makes for a nicer environment. And it's not like Sheffield where you've got quite big, sometimes dual carriageways and things running right through the middle of it. So I mean it is good in that respect. But I give Nottingham City Council a kick in quite often, but their policy has been to stop renewing licenses and things on student accommodation in the suburbs. So where landlords have just bought houses and rent it out to student accommodation, they're cutting back on that, which is good because, like I say, there's plenty of students now in the city centre, which makes it more vibrant. I mean, there's a real big boom on restaurants opening.
We had the discussion last night.
Yeah, in Nottingham, and it
By the
also
way, best pun ever, Prime Minister.
Yeah.
That is the best pun I've seen in a long time.
But it also sort of gives the neighbourhoods back to families and communities, because when you've got students who here one year, gone the next, somebody else is there, you lose some of that community cohesion in the suburbs. So it's good in that respect as well, and of course there's a looming housing crisis, so more reclaimed family housing is always good in that respect.
And we can go back to Jake Bugg and his who else is from Nottingham?
Sue Pollard.
Sue Pollard, is that it?
Our Sue.
You got Sue Pollard.
I
Sue
literally
Pollard.
don't know who Sue Pollard is.
She was in Heidi High, which is something that we used to watch in the Victorian times. Eddie Izzard.
Is he from Nottingham?
Yeah.
Is he really?
He is.
But he's
from
one of
Nottingham.
Sheffield's alumni.
Is he? Well, so Harry did his GDL at Sheffield, where I was doing my masters in politics. So we really weirdly, we move an extra 30 miles north up the M1, and all of a sudden you're in the north.
Yeah.
But if you call anyone northern in Nottingham,
Hell has been broken loose.
Oh, it's quite.
But they don't want to be called southern either. They're very proud of being.
in the middle.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I mean, I remember the first lecture we went into for British politics. I mean, our tutor Carl, who I think we all honour quite a lot and have a lot of thanks for, he said the Trent separated the country.
Yeah, it was once the north-south divide, wasn't it?
War was declared.
He put his stake, Charles put his stake in the ground, and that was it.
Although in typical Nottingham fashion, that place has now become a pub. So
quite rightly.
Yeah.
Quite rightly.
I think people struggle to pinpoint a Midlands identity, but I think there is that thing, that we're neither north nor southern. And you were saying about going to Sheffield and all of a sudden you're in the north.
Yeah.
We was having a interesting, it lasted about 20 minutes, a conversation at work a few weeks ago. I work for a flooring wholesaler in the office, but we got some input into the introductory letters we were going to send out to new customers. And I was making the case for using a lowercase m in the word Midlands in this letter. It was basically saying that we distribute, throughout Nottingham and the Midlands. But at the moment, we're trying to target the Sheffield market,
which isn't
the Midlands. Now, if you put a capital M on Midlands, this was my argument, I think you're alienating people in Sheffield, because I think, well, do they deliver this far up then? If they only deliver in the Midlands, do they come here? Probably not. And losing custom right over that one uppercase M.
You really think that
the pedantic
my colleagues were infuriated with me.
I mean, why did you not just say Nottingham, the Midlands, and South Yorkshire?
Well, we were trying to keep it short and sweet, and we don't necessarily go to South Yorkshire all the time.
Where else is there in South Yorkshire?
Well, there's
Donny, which is next to Sheffield,
Donny
and Chesterfield,
Rotherham, and
which again is next to it.
Barnsley.
It's probably quicker getting to
Barnsley
Rotherham.
Qualify as South Yorkshire? I think it would. Yeah.
I would have thought so.
But I won the argument. We did go for the lowercase m.
Oh dear.
Just so that the Sheffield lot felt included.
I hope when somebody, because you deal with the
because lowercase Midland, lowercase m on Midlands, it's just a generic Midlands sort of area, isn't it? It doesn't quantify a specific region.
Whereas that capital M.
Yeah, well, the Midlands is a region, isn't it? Though this was my argument. The Midlands with a capital M is the East Midlands and the West Midlands, and that's
So did you live to Birmingham?
A set of counties. Well, this was the other thing. We don't really go as far as places like Herefordshire and Shropshire. So if we put capital M, people are going to be led to believe that we'll go there every day willy-nilly, which we don't. So
well, don't or won't.
Well, it depends what it's for. If it's a big order, then we might. But it's just not convenient. We've only got a small fleet of 5 or 6 vans and lorries. So,
I mean, I think it's interesting, particularly when you say about an identity. This whole idea of regions having its own identity. I'm from Bedfordshire, and the big thing you have in Bedfordshire,
which is known for
so my hometown of Biggleswade invented 2 things. Well, it has got a third famous attraction. The first famous thing is we have Jordan cereal, and even when we all lived in Lille.
So this is a breakfast cereal, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we went to a supermarket and found Jordan cereal, and it says Biggleswade on the box, and so that's our thing at the minute. We also have the big crane company Liebherr. Their UK base is in Biggleswade. We bang on the A1.
Yeah.
But we invented 2 things. Dan Allbone, who lived in Biggleswade all his life, and now has a couple of industrial parks named after him. He invented the tractor, big invention, and the ladies' specific bicycle.
How does that differ? Just out of interest.
It has
it's got
the lower
bar
down,
in the middle thing, hasn't it?
The lower down tube.
And I mean, that's all very impressive, Kez, but in Retford we invented America, so
do you really want to take the credit for that?
Well, maybe not so much on the current face of American politics, but the Pilgrim Fathers and whatnot. That was us.
They weren't lovely people. I mean, I just want to put that out.
They killed a lot of the natives.
Yeah, these weren't nice people. These.
I mean, I come from Londonshire.
And, what have you ever given us?
So I think we invented the hot air balloon.
Everything else.
Yeah, the smokeless candle.
The smokeless. What is that?
It's not a real thing.
I
was going to list a load of things.
Tartan paint.
Yeah.
spirit level bubbles. Sky hooks.
Yeah.
But I mean, just going back to your founding fathers. So, Donald Trump's ancestors
were German, right?
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Actually, that's a good point.
He was nothing to do with us.
They're not very founding when what's his mother
was Scottish.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, when Mount Rushmore has
Trump carved into it.
Yeah.
Oh God, that.
And it'll have a sponsorship on it in true Trump fashion.
Sponsored by Fox News. God, that's going to be awful, isn't it?
I'm waiting for the Palin ticket to be announced.
What, Trump Palin?
Trump Palin. It's I think.
I mean, that does sound like.
It sounds like the kind of thing he would do.
It sounds like a parody porn.
Does it? Is that
Trump Palin? But there's loads of. I mean, I only know this strictly for research purposes. But there's loads of Sarah Palin parody porn. It's apparently a really big thing. No pun intended. There's some. I think it's quite a big niche, if such a thing is.
Who would have thought that hardline religious conservatism would make pornography more interesting for some people?
I mean, I hope people watch it with a sense of irony.
I mean, I'm sure.
It's like a fat kid wearing trainers.
Yeah.
I hope they're doing it.
Because we all know that that's why people watch porn. Irony.
I still think the best sort of parody, but it's so stupid. But it was on Little Britain, and it was Snow White does 7 dwarfs, and it was just the way they build that, and it was really. I just thought that was a really humorous parody. But how did we get from the founding fathers to parody?
I think Donald Trump has that kind of ability to move a conversation so far from where it started.
Well, yeah. just mention something like we're gonna figure how the hell this all happened. His rhetoric is insane.
Yeah. He's not even a particularly great orator, is he? I don't think.
No.
When you listen to him, all right. What he's saying is, what it is in itself. But I don't even think his deliveries or.
I mean, he had that line. I went to public school. I went to an Ivy League university. I have the best words, which is a terrible.
I have the best words.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't win an argument with an intellectual saying, I have the best words.
Today's word, the.
Yeah. Tune in again tomorrow.
Maybe we just read books out one word by one and just sort of, that is the word of the day.
The word of the day. Muslim. Muslim tomorrow. Well, that's gonna keep happening if you keep reading the Quran. It's this still baffles me. I don't know if anybody else feels the same. I'm not sure how you two feel about this. When people describe Islamophobic hate speech as racist, because any form of religion is not a race.
No.
And I think the other thing is what people often forget when they say, "Oh, Muslims coming over here." The point of religion is not to be as small and sort of unilateral and in one place as you possibly. It's not to have this small group. I mean, without want to bring in Israel into it too much, but the whole point of any form of religion, it's a doctrine you want as many people to sign up to as possible.
Well, yeah.
And 1.3 billion Muslims in the world or something like that, they're not all going to live in the Middle East.
No.
And considering that they occupied Spain and sort of the only form of meaningful philosophy between sort of Socrates, okay, a few people after Socrates, but the Greeks and the Romans right up until the 11th and 12th century. And that was the first time we had proper philosophy again. And people didn't really care when they were inventing the guitar and stuff like that. But now all of a sudden people are like, well, hang on a minute, they would like to impose some rules. Like, yeah, Christianity's been doing something similar for a long time. Like, they had this big empire and it kind of dissolved. So what they do, they turn it into a church.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not. And I think the arguments have been very confused in regards to how the terminology. And you can't just describe this as racism because it's not racism. It's beyond that. I mean, there's an irrational hatred of a race, which is totally irrational. I think you can have rational Islamophobia the same way you can have rational anti-Christian rhetoric or anti.
It's that point at which
anti-Semitic, but
criticism spills into what we could deem as racism, and it's not finding the word for that.
Well, particularly what's happened with the Labour Party and Ken Livingstone's thing of saying that the thing that Ken Livingstone said on Question Time was anti-Semitic, but you can't, if you're going to criticise a state and then call it anti-Semitic, you're confusing two things. The action of a state, just because they happen to have a state religion of Judaism, you're not criticising
the religion, you're criticising the state, the actions of the state.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly legitimate. And George Galloway always gets pulled into this because and also he can't shut the hell up.
I think Ken Livingstone as well, to an extent,
can't shut the hell up.
If the line was that if you're stuck in a debate, never throw Hitler in as a positive counterpoint. It's never a sensible idea. I don't want to go Malcolm Tucker on this. But this is like discussion 101. Don't talk about Hitler. Don't make any hand gestures.
Don't get a marker pen out. I think that, but this is Godwin's law at work, which is basically the first one to compare to Hitler or anything like that loses the argument. And I even think that that has sort of had its day as well, because the thing that always gets pulled out about Hitler was his vegetarianism and how he didn't drink and stuff like that, and how these are they're in the good positive column, in the good positive column of things in life, which is not to eat meat, not to drink alcohol and stuff like that. And then they compare that to Churchill, who drank and smoked and had extramarital affairs, whatever else he got to. But somehow the characters get confused. And I think that in exactly the same way, I don't think anybody with any form of intelligence shouldn't go Hitler bad. Hitler just bad. Like, it doesn't just work like that. He didn't hurt any animals. Not trying to sort of make it too light-hearted, but there are certain things that the Nazi Party did which are incredibly effective. I think you've got to look at how they dominated cinema, and how they use that as semiotics in order to win over sort of these floating voters and get their message out. And there's a German film gone on Netflix. I've got a broken foot and a broken wrist at the moment, so I spend a lot of time on Netflix. And there's a film called Look Who's Back, or Guess Who's Back, and it's a German film about Hitler coming back in the 21st century, literally just landing in Berlin, and how he gets the message back across, utilising television and stuff like that. It's a brilliant, genuinely a brilliant film, despite it being in German. It's you still pick up all the nuances. You still know how somebody speaks, even if they're speaking a different language. You know if this is spoken well. But I think there are certain things that you have to look at what the Nazis did and go, well, there's some really interesting things there. And I don't think you can just look at, okay, the end goal was of course horrible and nasty and abhorrent. Nasty. Really nasty what you did, Hitler.
It wasn't very nice.
No.
To say the least.
But I think it's, on the flip side, I don't think you can just go, everything they ever did was incredibly bad and we should never mention it again and you should never be compared to it, because you almost forget all the little you forget the history of how it got to that point.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Trying to think of a few other examples, really.
Stalin's atheism is always brought up, particularly if you're ever having I'm a sucker for religious discussions on Facebook, which I really shouldn't be. I follow quite a few. Like what's one called? The Queer Bible. That's quite a funny one on Facebook, and it does mock the Bible a bit. And I think, I think atheism has a slight bit of arrogance to it, which it shouldn't.
Slight.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, as an atheist, it's. I remember having this discussion in Sheffield actually with a Nigerian Catholic, and typically Nigerian, really nice guy, but he said, "Why do atheists think they have the answers to everything?" When I don't think he said when none of us do, because obviously he thought that he had more answers or had more explanation. And I purely said you can't look at atheism like that. You can't look at atheism, and I think atheists fall into they're entrapped by their own belief by thinking, oh, I'm free of the shackles of this doctrine now, which means I must somehow be superior, and it doesn't work like that. All you do is you go, I don't believe in this, and therefore I need to look else. I look elsewhere for morality, but you can't then have that. Exactly the same thing. You can't turn around and say Islam and Christianity and Judaism are, and Sikhism and Hinduism, you can't go, these are awful, these are all bad, and they've all done bad things, they oppress women and animal rights and stuff like that. You can't just go, that's bad, that's not, because again, as soon as you had such huge advancements in the Renaissance period, that some of that would never have happened without funding the Catholic Church.
No. So
you have to balance it out, and I think again atheists lose that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time atheists seem to come across as though they take great glee in providing any evidence whatsoever to prove anybody religious wrong. It almost seems, I don't know, they just seem a bit too smug about it sometimes.
I get that, and I must admit I've
but I mean, to go on a bit, it's, they almost seem to take great glee in destroying other people's faith and belief, and everything that they've based their life on up to that point, which is,
I mean, my girlfriend believes in ghosts, and
no, I've got an open mind towards.
Well, I mean, this is but I think for you to have a belief in ghosts, she's an atheist as well. And I said, but surely as an atheist and not thinking anything, there's no afterlife.
Yeah.
How the fuck can you believe in that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm sat there going, it doesn't make sense. And I think what there's a really good podcast, Distraction Pieces, and I was listening to up here. Is Sarah Pascoe was on it, the comedian Sarah Pascoe, talking to Scroobius Pip, and she's talking about these things, ideas of consciousness. you're thinking, well, you haven't seen what I've seen. And even though I may not believe in ghosts, I only started believing in ghosts when I thought I saw a ghost, and you haven't seen it through my eyes. And it's basically talk about how people should watch things, like go to gigs and watch them rather than take pictures of them.
Yes, yeah.
And I hate that.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Never done that before.
It's I think
but some people stand there for 15-20 minutes filming, don't they?
And
It's the people at the front that ruin it for everyone.
you've got you've got the best.
And whilst
view,
they're doing
like,
that, they're watching it through
through
their
the phone.
screen. And you think it's right in front of you. Just
and then you lose because you're watching it there. You lose all the ambience and the sounds. I mean, the whole point of a gig is whilst you're hearing it, it's the feeling. I think there is definitely something.
Yeah.
I mean, the ambience for a One Direction concert, I assure you.
Fair, I mean, admittedly, I mean, okay.
Although I'm sure the iPhone mic isn't sensitive enough to pick up the high screams.
So actually, you record it to blank out schoolgirls.
Maybe.
It's an interesting concept. So I mean, we are coming up to the hour mark, sort of chatting away. That seemed to go quite quickly. I mean, admittedly, you get Ben going on about Nottingham's.
Banging the Nottingham drum.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing we should talk about, and this really is one thing we should talk about, particularly with the views around the table, is the EU referendum.
Oh joy!
Yes.
We can't escape on out. Before we start on it, we all lived together in France. We benefited from the Erasmus exchange program, where we went to the hugely prestigious
Sciences Po Lille.
Sciences Po Lille, which if you ever Google Sciences Po, you get the nice
French one.
Paris one, which is
sorry, they're all
Lille,
French.
But
this one was in Mars.
Yeah, but the Paris one's a beautiful building and looks very elegant. And then the Lille one, what is it, an old cotton mill or something like that?
Some sort of old.
It was in a ghetto with police up and down the street every day.
Yeah. Avoiding the dog shit.
And
on
a nightclub next door, which obviously
we never went to, did we?
No. Although they keep sending me stuff on Facebook, so
I keep getting those, and I think I just unlike them. I think the chance of me going back. So we I mean that's sort of how we really became friends, because we lived together kind of blindly. These two went over there previously, and I just rocked up on day one going, hiya, I'm here now. But no, I mean, I know where Ben sits on this, but I mean, Harry, I know you're maybe slightly more on the fence than...
I think I am reluctantly pro-European, and I think it's because I see the alternative as being so much worse. And I know I'm not one to uphold the status quo, you know, me with my Che Guevara t-shirt and some say principles, but I don't see us being out of Europe as being any better. And a lot of the arguments that Yanis Varoufakis made on the issue of us leaving, things like TTIP and would that be imposed if we left, arguably if we left Europe, that'd be imposed on us far quicker then we'd stay in. At least we've got a chance of fighting it outside.
Just to put out where I stand on this. I mean, I like Europe as well, like Harry. I love France. Actually, if I wasn't born British, I'd have liked to have been born French. I think.
Bloody hell!
Oh, yeah. I do like the French.
Big call there.
But so I mean, I like Europe. Been around a fair bit of it, and. In theory, I like the idea of the pooling of the continent's resources. In theory,
a European coal and
the European coal and steel community, and pooling of you're still effectively pooling resources, aren't you? When you can sell anything or buy anything from anywhere
with no
tariffs or anything. Tariffs, yeah. So
Barriffs. That's
Barriffs.
What they should start calling it Barriffs.
But so I like the idea in principle. I should point out, and that's also for some sort of ambitious future political ideals as well that I won't go into now. But the problem is, I don't like this European Union. I think there's too much wrong with it, and people say, well, if you have to be in it to change things. I don't think I have as much faith in, in the pro EU side. I don't have as much faith in the UK's ability to change it. I don't think. Okay, we side with Germany on quite a few things more and more, but France and the Mediterranean countries sort of tend to hold things back in their favour.
Quite rightly.
Well,
I mean, again, if you were that nation state.
Yeah, I mean they're just doing what's in their interest, which is fine. But I mean things. Well, let's talk about the Common Agricultural Policy. Which,
this is if you read the Priori last month, Ben wrote quite nice. I think the thing is the Common Agricultural Policy is one of these things that isn't brought up enough.
It isn't.
In support of why the European Union doesn't benefit Britain as much as it should do.
Yeah, I mean, this is a policy that accounts for around about a third of the total EU budget, which, so it's a significant part of it, but obviously it's just not, quote my own article, it's just not as sexy as immigration, is it, to plaster on front pages?
Really, people don't care about it.
But, I mean, that in itself is fundamentally a French invention. And the idea of it is to ensure that food stocks, there's plenty of food to go around, and that prices are kept at a sustainable level for the growers, for the farmers. The problem with it is the handouts tend to be based on how much land the owner, the farmer owns, rather than the output. Which is problematic because you've got big farming corporations in France.
Well, and also you've got more space.
Yeah, but it's not just France. I mean, our monarchy has plenty of farmland. They benefit quite well from it. But more often than not, smaller family farmers
who actually work in the
more often than not get a lot more output from their land than the farming corporations with lots of land, and yet they can get up to 10 times less for the same ton of wheat or whatever of output. So that's fundamentally wrong. And then you've got the fact that the excesses either just get wasted or get dumped in Africa for next to nothing, putting African farmers out of business.
I mean, this is kind of drawing on the two issues you brought up there. I mean, Gordon Brown was speaking to the Commission with Martin Schulz, the head of the European Parliament, who's also a DJ, which really messed me up. I think he's called Martin Schulz as well. Martin Schulz played at Ultra Festival. Anyway,
day and night.
Yeah, I mean I think he's on the socialist side, isn't he? And he or left of centre. And Gordon Brown basically said the fight. Martin Schulz and the European Parliament is leading the fight against fascism, protectionism, nationalism when it comes to the economy. And I felt like going, this guy. I mean, the European Union doesn't do that. It doesn't fight against protectionism. I mean, whilst it has national protectionism, I think any state has to have some form of protectionism at some point or another. Otherwise, everything is opened up to anything. Yeah. Which at the moment we're seeing with the steel industry, and there are. Right. Yeah. I mean, I wrote an article a while ago about people. This was when I was at the Citizens Advice Bureau, and people not having transferable skills, and this is when they shut big coal and steel plants in favour for Chinese steel. My dad always makes this point of going, actually, for the cost of a ton of coal, the knock-on effects of you closing a plant, that person going on the dole, that person being long-term unemployed, those children then getting into that, or the businesses move out of that town because there's no money there. And
the whole local economy suffers. People aren't spending money in the shops and whatnot.
Exactly. Surely you have to that extra pound a ton or whatever it is from you buying Uruguayan coal or whatever it was in the 80s.
There's certainly a bigger
picture. Negligible. I mean, that's the thing.
In terms of the bigger picture.
Exactly, and I mean that's the point he's always made for protectionism. And I think particularly when it comes to the Common Agricultural Fund, that's when you see the real West German, French early influence.
Yes.
Because I mean that's the thing, and particularly that one of the reasons why as you like to pronounce, Charles de Gaulle.
Charles de Gaulle.
Yeah. One of his big issues for Britain not joining, because they thought it was going to disrupt the French farming and fishing. And I think Britain does get I was going to say a raw deal when it comes to fishing, which is probably a poor choice of words. But I mean, when you talk about we can't, you don't think the best way of dealing with it is staying in. Do you not think? I mean, I know this whole thing of us spending 350 million a week. I mean, you must see there's benefit from that. And also, common agricultural policy is a big chunk of money.
Well, we get. We get. Let's not forget, we get a rebate.
Quite
predominantly because the French benefit from us partly funding the common agricultural policy. So we get a rebate, although they're always looking to take it back off us. But
we also get. I mean, being in Sheffield, I don't think Sheffield would look anything like it does now without the European Union, without Objective 1. In terms of the redevelopment, basically when big industries close, and then the European Union, so long as it's matched 50, it'll match anything the national government will put into it.
Look at Belfast and what's happened there. A lot of that is regenerated through European money.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this for staying in the EU, for a place like Nottingham, places further afield in the north, that don't get the funding from the government that London and the South get. The EU does provide a nice counterbalance to that in terms of getting funding. So I will say that for it.
And puts a little bit of pressure on the national government.
Yeah, I mean, especially at the moment, whilst we've got a Conservative government. I mean, there's an article in the Nottingham Post.
That's not a national newspaper for those.
Yeah, it's the local rag. I can't remember if it was this morning or yesterday. But it was about how the government's had a pot of money that it's given to councils to make up, well, not to fully make up, but to sort of help them out with the reductions in funding. But councils with Labour run councils tend to be getting quite a bit less than the Conservative councils down south are getting.
Yeah, well, this has been what was it? It was either 500 or 800 million. This big pot of money.
Yeah.
Decent amounts, and it turned out 83% of the councils receiving this were Tory-run councils. And as we know, Labour has more more councils than Tories. So I mean that is grossly disproportionate to the picture painted across. And but I mean I've raised this point, and this is going to be raised in my editorial of this month's Priori. When we just kind of staying on point with this, but the democratic deficit of the European Union is often brought up for a reason to leave, and sovereignty as well with these things. We have 24 UKIP MEPs who aren't there. I mean that's the thing. I mean if you want to talk about a democratic deficit, represent. I mean they're meant to be a patriotic party, and this is the thing that pisses me off so much about UKIP. If you're genuinely patriotic, and you want to support the nation's interests, and you're taking the money provided by the European Union to protest to leave the European Union, I think that's perfectly legitimate. But then when it comes to things that Britain needs a role in, even if you're just going to oppose everything the European Union does, you're just going to sit there and oppose it, you still have to... You've been elected by the people, and admittedly, us as voters have let us down. I mean, a third of us turned out in 2014. You sat there going, well, that's not good enough.
I mean, staying on the democratic thing with the EU, people say, well, it's not very democratic, this, that and the other. I don't know who these people are who are making all these laws and things in Brussels, blah, blah, blah. Well, a couple of things to remember. First of all, the European elections are, it's a proportional voting system, isn't it? Which isn't something that we currently use
for our own.
Yeah. So, that would be one sort of counter-argument on that. But having said that, usually when you vote for a party here, you sort of know who the leader is going to be and roughly who the cabinet's going to be and everything. And I think more often than not, most people, I think when you vote for your MEPs, you don't really
you vote
know.
party rather than
You
person.
don't really know who, because obviously you get the blocks of parties in the EU, don't you? And you know, you get the makeup of the executives, you know, level at the top.
Yeah.
And people don't really know, you know, who's going to be in that, what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
So I think there's a certain argument to be made on that.
Well, I mean, I don't really know what to say about it, really. I mean, obviously the
It's alright, Harry. It's not a big deal.
Well,
it's just the EU.
Obviously, you've got the council, which is made up of heads of state, and you've got representation there. I mean, these are people that are directly, well, not directly elected.
The council isn't necessarily made up of. They're appointed by.
Well, no, isn't it? The council is the council of ministers is the heads of state, and the commission is.
So the commission is appointed by
one appointee per
nation.
Yeah, I think the issue is that.
But the fact that we've got 4 degrees in politics, but around this table, and we're still going, oh, okay, yeah, that's how it works. But I mean, this is the thing. I mean, we're quite into this, but I think that basically draws the point up really nicely of going. The European Union is bloody complicated, and I don't think people like to admit. I don't know what happens.
Yeah.
I don't really know what goes on, but I don't like it.
Yes.
But I mean, this, and I think that bugs me a bit because people aren't willing to sort of just go. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know, and it's.
I mean, I was doing research for the charity I'm at. I work at a whistleblowing charity, and they asked me to research the legislative process in Europe. And you think 3 of the people that are there are former partners at big law firms. I've just done 2 degrees in law. I can't even think of the bloody process, you know. And the fact that, you know, I sent the report round, and they were sharing it because none of them bloody knew what was going on. I mean, it is overly...
It's long-winded.
Yeah, and okay, it does make sense when you look at it, and the Parliament does have a role, but the fact that I didn't know that, the fact that we didn't know that, if I asked either of you two what the legislative process was...
I'd have a stab, but I mean...
It's, you know, and what the different reports are and what the committees do, no one has a bloody clue.
Well, this is the thing, I mean, we brought up TTIP earlier. How many people had not the faintest clue what... I mean, I had a political party meeting for the political party I'm a member of, and we're talking about TTIP. Okay, you just chatting like everybody's aware what TTIP is, and I'm getting nudged by people going, "What's TTIP?" And I'm getting nudged by somebody else later on going, "Oh, let's talk about TTIP. Is that teabag?" Like, I mean, it's like, but this is the thing. I mean, it's
a gratuity at a cafe.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff is difficult, and I mean, if you ever do any European Union or any European integration study, you've got neo-functionalism and liberal intergovernmentalism as these 2 big forms of how the European Union used to integrate itself, and it got replaced by this thing called multi-level governance, spearheaded, basically invented by Ian Bache, who's a professor at the University of Sheffield, and he's describing it to us. And of course, this guy created this theory, and you sat there going, "Okay, I can't challenge us too much." I mean, but the first thing goes is you have to remember that the European Union in and of itself doesn't have that many resources. In relation to a national government, you look at the civil service and it's bare, really, really bare. So it uses a lot of private interests, and that's why BP have headquarters in Brussels. The Quakers have I mean, this is the thing that you're going from huge swings of religious organisations, charities, NGOs, companies, huge multinational companies. And they're all interacting with different levels of the Commission, the Parliament, the Council, and then they're dealing with the courts, and then to make sure everything's legal and stuff like that. And they're all interacting with each other at a variety of different levels, at a variety of heights. And you're trying to get your head around this, and the only way he sort of describes it is, if you imagine the European Union's a multi-storey car park, and the Commissioner at the top, and the Parliament's at the bottom, every single level is a different level of communication between a law firm or an NGO or something like that, your multi-storey car park would hit heaven before you ever got anywhere close between. But this is the thing; it's so complicated, and I don't think people like to be told that. People want, this is the answer. This is the problem. This is why immigration is good or bad. This is, and I think people really struggle with the European Union because it's so much bigger, because it's Parliament times 28 minus civil services plus business, and it all gets very messy.
I think the public debate has probably been dumbed down, if you like, in that respect, in that you've got the Remain side mainly talking about the economy and potential effects of what might happen if we leave. What else do you boys talk about? It's mainly economic. It's mainly economical from the Remain side, and the Leave side is sort of immigration and
money.
A bit about sovereignty as well, isn't it? But
weird,
but like you say, there's so many more issues that we're not really touching on, are we?
Well, no, and this is the thing, and I think the moment you start talking about the Common Agricultural Fund, people go, what the fuck are you on about? and you are literally sat there going, this has gotten too dry. But it's I thought what was going to come out of this was the Remain were going to be the fearmongers. I thought it was going to be a Scotland referendum all over again. Remain was going to be fearmongering about what happens if you leave, and the Leave side were going to be hopeful. And it's kind of role reversed at one point or another, because now what's happened is you sat there going, well, if we leave, the European Union will have everything. We'll join a European army. We'll then invade the moon, and it's it's become this sort of, and the NHS will be underfunded, and then your mum will die. And it's in the way the Remain side has gone. Hang on, we admit there's faults, we know there's issues, but you don't change that by running away. And Dan Jarvis, the Labour MP, says the thing that puts the great in Great Britain is our resilience. And it's our resilience to do things properly. And I said, okay, so when we acted in like Rwanda, but I mean, I think his general point is that to do the right thing, you have to stay in it. I don't think cutting us off from Europe was a thing. And I mean, the hopeful argument basically started with going, well, let's trade with the Commonwealth because we love cigars and marijuana.
I would disagree to some extent. I mean, I think it's been quite negative from both sides.
Yeah.
Really. I think there's been a lot of. I think the Remain side has been guilty of some fearmongering.
Probably more so.
Mainly around the economy, saying, "Oh, if we come out, you're going to lose your job. We're going to be poor. End of the world." Obviously, the Leave campaign, does its fair share of scaremongering about immigration and things like that, and being ruled by overlords who we haven't chosen and that sort of thing.
Like the Queen.
Yeah.
Morons.
So I think it's disappointing in that respect. I would have liked to have seen the Leave side talk more about the opportunities for Britain out of the EU and talk more about, because the other thing is nobody's really, and it's difficult too, I know. Nobody's really pinpointed what sort of relationship they might like to have with the EU if we leave. People are saying, all right, we still want to trade with the EU, and therefore the economy's not going to do so bad. That's what they want, but nobody's really talking about what that specifically might look like. And the Remain campaign, I'm surprised they haven't been a bit more positive about the benefits of the EU. I think that they've generally emphasised what it's going to be like if we leave, or what it theoretically might be like, but I don't think they've spoken enough about the benefits of being in, really.
No, I mean, I think it's really difficult for, I mean, I don't like to say I've got sympathy for the Tories, but if you are a pro-European Tory, you are well and truly stuck between a rock and a hard place, because you're going, the EU gives us these benefits, but we should replace the Human Rights Act with a Bill of Rights, and you're suddenly going, Hang on a minute.
I don't think it's all Tories either. I mean, look at Dominic Grieve. He's routinely told the Tories that their idea to remove the Human Rights Act is bullshit. It doesn't seem to be a logical.
I think the other thing that would perhaps have been good to hear from the Remain side is what sort of role the UK might play in the EU once we voted to stay in. What sort of things we might be pushing for. And I know that's difficult actually, because obviously David Cameron's just come back from Brussels with a deal.
Renegotiated this magnificent deal.
Yeah. So I guess it's hard to do that to some extent, because if we stay in, we basically think we're going to be it's going to change with what David Cameron's negotiated. So I understand it to some extent, but why aren't they talking more about the potential for the EU? I think the EU maybe not this EU, but a body like the EU has the potential to do all sorts, like the energy thing that I briefly alluded to in my article that Germany is actually already doing.
And I think there's certain things that, I mean, Portugal went 4 days on renewable energy last week or the week before, and you sat there going, this is a big leap forward. And I mean, I don't think people like to think renewable energy is a big leap forward, because they go, oh, we kill all the birds. It's like, but I think it really does demonstrate proper progress. And I think whilst each European partner is sat there going, hang on, because even Britain has developed, for the first time ever, solar power developed more energy than coal on one day. And you start thinking how big the coal power is in Britain.
Sure,
going, that is incredible. I mean, would this been possible out of the European Union? Well, yeah, of course it would be. But what's the point of, not necessarily within a European Union, but what's the point in doing this stuff if you aren't doing it on a global scale? Because if you're going, okay, well, we've now got rid of coal, we can now do it all renewable. And China going, oh, we're just going to burn these pandas. It's like, I mean, it's and I think the cohesion between the partners, and I mean, the trade deals and the climate change deals that the EU has struck with. South Africa is a good example. Trade deal with South Africa has managed to bring the south of the continent, rather than just a country, sort of right up in terms of renewable energy. I mean, now it's purely self-sufficient on gunfire and police brutality. I mean, that's, but no, I mean, I think there are positives, and I think the problem that I think you allude to it absolutely fantastic, which is going, the Remain side knows there's positives, but just bring them out. Bring them out a bit more.
There are areas of policy that nation states cannot approach for themselves. They're not going to. Kyoto was a failure because states basically decided, well, we're not going to abide by it. If you bind them by law, they tend to do things.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, we will call that a day. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Harry Raithatha and Ben Walters, been in Nottingham. This is the June's Priori podcast. Thank you for joining us. Right, so that was the June podcast with Harry Raithatha and Ben Walters. I hope you enjoyed it. I had this idea a while ago to record a podcast, and this is sort of the first go. It was fairly unstructured, as you can tell. We started off quite slow, and we sort of had to get into the groove a bit, but I thought by the end of it we were really flowing with it, and hopefully we've got a bit more of an insight about things you might not normally have talked about, might not normally have discussed, and hopefully learn some things with this discussion. You can support the Priori on thepriori.co.uk. We have a donate button there. and all the donations just go into the running of the site without using any advertisement. But of course, if anybody would like to support and advertise on the podcast, then we'd be happy to mention that. As I said, this is going to be the first of a monthly podcast. So next month I will be having a chat with another interesting person, and we'll just see how it all fares. As always, if you have any, if you'd like to contribute a piece or anything, if you contact us via the priori.co.uk, or even just disagree with one of the writers, let's have a conversation on online. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the June edition of the Priori. Thank you.
Created using Powtoon.